I have done over 50 ayahuasca ceremonies, and it all started back in 2021, where I went to Brazil and I had the first 3 ceremonies. And I want to talk about ayahuasca and how this has completely destroyed me, actually. How I completely have lost myself, and also why I have changed so much over the last 4 years, because a lot of you guys who have been following this channel remember me from before I started changing, and it was quite different, Jon, back then. I want to give some context why I changed and what happened exactly. The last 4 years has been the hardest years of my life, without a doubt, and it has only gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's gotten so bad in terms of wanting to live that I lost the will to live. And it's still a problem for me at times, because I'm still trying to figure everything out. How do you even explain ayahuasca and what it is to people in the first place? My family, my parents, they think I'm just doing drugs, and my family, they love me, but I'm pretty sure they think I'm a part-time mental ward patient. Because if you have never tried psychedelics or anything that is mind-altering, then the idea of all the things that you hear about ayahuasca is just ridiculous. Oh, you see colors, you're like foreign entities enter, and you see past lives. It's very hard to relate to, and therefore I think a lot of people, they're like, yeah, you've gone mad. I think the best way to describe ayahuasca for people who don't know what it is that it basically just deconstructs your mind. So every ceremony, it peels off a layer of all the programming and all the conditioning that you have gotten since childhood, since birth. Everything, trauma, success, wins, failures, everything, all of that, how society has shaped you, how music videos and movies, all of this has shaped you into who you are, how parents have raised you, everything. And the crash here is that you have a society with values, and then you have the values that ayahuasca shows you. And these two things conflict heavily. I remember when I was younger, especially in my 20s, I literally knew everything. My dad, he would always just say that, he would like quote me in, "I know I'm right." That's what he would say about me. "Jon, yeah, I know I'm right." So my ego has always been pretty big, I will admit that. And therefore ayahuasca was so difficult for me to get into. I didn't know how much darkness I had, how many shadows I have, and how much fear I have. God, I have so much fear. I didn't know I was so fearful, but in hindsight, when I look back at, my alcohol abuse and everything, it is clear that I was coping. So ayahuasca is like this divine intelligence, this, like, if you were to describe God, then ayahuasca is God. That's how it feels, or at least that's the closest experience I've had to encountering God. And I went from being, this atheist and I don't believe in anything, to starting to wonder that maybe there is more to this life than just, the physical world. And that is why I knew I had to continue with ayahuasca. I knew I had to sit through all these ceremonies, because my soul wanted this. My ego, my mind, hated it, because every single ceremony was, you drink the brew, and then within 20, 30, 40 minutes, it starts doing its thing. It can be very peaceful and blissful, but for me, because of my fear, I was always so scared to see what is it that it wants to show me. So I was resisting, always resisting. When you resist the medicine, it becomes very uncomfortable. Just imagine 4 or 5 hours of absolute torture. I think at least 35 of my ceremonies have been just like that. But they always ended out with some kind of clarity, some kind of bliss where I felt relief, like something had been cleansed inside of me. And how I started losing myself was that in between the ceremonies, that's where you have the integration, where all the teachings, you're supposed to really integrate this to your life. And that's so hard. That is so difficult. And that is why I started really losing myself, because I was not integrating. I was not embodying everything that I was in many ways also preaching to people. When you have these conflicting values that society is very much about success, chasing the good life, wealth, possessions. I talk a lot about this these days. While there's nothing wrong with that, ayahuasca is is in the other lane, where it's love, unconditional love, compassion, and presence. And those three things are not really part of society today, at least not in its purest sense. There's a big difference between love today, what we think love is, and then what love actually is. It was just breaking down everything I thought I knew as wrong. And then it gave me all these new set of values and ideas that it wanted me to adopt. And so my identity was just falling apart. My confidence, my will to do what I think or thought was right vanished. Suddenly I had gone from, always knowing what's up to being so insecure about everything that I couldn't really make a decision. And suddenly I would be stuck in this paralysis and slowly become a shadow of who I was. For a few years I was just battling this ego versus who am I really, while also learning to be a human, starting all over. Because in reality, no one teaches you what ayahuasca teaches you, even though it's the most basic concepts of being a human. Loving unconditionally, having compassion and not hating people, and being present. Very, very important, being present. When were we taught how to be present? When were we taught to be compassionate? I don't know if it's just where I come from, but in Denmark, presence is never talked about, ever. I am the first to admit that I have always been really good at talking bad about other people if I didn't like them. Slowly, I've understood that everybody is the way they are because of all the events that has happened in their life, all the programming, all the trauma. So when you go from these hard values in life to the soft values in life, where you start to understand the things that actually matter in life, then I didn't really know what to do with myself, because everything I thought I wanted was not what I wanted. And suddenly you're like, what the hell am I going to do with myself now that I don't even know who I am? I have to start completely from scratch. I've had the same lesson over and over, to the point where I'm starting to see it. Hello. I'm starting to get it. In life, you keep getting the same lesson until you get it. Otherwise, life will just keep giving you the same lesson over and over and over. And I've had the same lesson over and over and over for the last, I'd say, 3 years. And I've understood this lesson to an extent now, because I'm so sick of making the same mistakes. There's a point where you're just like, I can't be that guy anymore. I have to just become a man, Stop being such a child. Stop being so entitled. Stop being so weak. So I think, a long story short, ayahuasca has completely transformed my life. And this descent into madness has really just been a slow ego death. I don't like that word because I feel like everybody says ego death. Ego death. Yes. Yeah, I know. They agree. They hate that word. But that's what it is. Because the only thing that separates you from who you really are is your ego. And the ego is, it has taken me a very long time to understand what is ego and what is me. And the ego is what drives people to do a lot of stupid shit. So I also want this video to be a reminder for people who are looking into ayahuasca to understand that you can't just do ayahuasca a few times and then, because you had a bad experience, think that, oh, it's the devil, it's the demon, it's all that, because that's what happens to a lot of people. Of course, you need to have a good shaman or a good facilitator and all that. That is very important. I haven't done ayahuasca for 5 months now, so I've actually stopped it for a while, and the reason is that I simply had enough of the medicine showing me the same things. It was time for me to start integrating all these lessons. And the funny thing is that now, because I know all these things and I've had all these lessons, life has become one long ayahuasca ceremony. Not with the visuals and all that, but just the amount of synchronicities, and it's wild. I think the main difference between who I am and who I was is that back then I had no foundation. I was just, ballooning towards all the things I thought I wanted, but I didn't have any foundation as to what are my values, what is it that matters, why am I doing what I want. Now, after all this living hell, I have roots that are really deep down in earth, in the soil. And so, moving forward from here seems a lot more positive and sustainable, because I know what I want in life now. I know what matters. So I'm not chasing the wrong things. My intention is not bad or wrong or flawed. And this is why I'm doing these videos now, where I'm just talking non-stop. I just want to talk about these things that truly matters, because I have spent the last 8 years talking about things that don't really matter. I think ayahuasca saved my life for sure. COVID, lockdowns, 2021, it was not a good time. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about all this I'm talking about, what I'm saying. And then if you relate, have you gone through something similar? When was your turning point? Do you feel like you need some kind of turning point? I think that we are in a time now where a lot of people, they're turning their boat around. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.